All right, for those of you just hopping on, I just put the sign-in link in the chat, and there's also a QR code if you'd rather use that on your screen. And here's the link for today's presentation that Danielle is going to review.
All right, it's 3:03. I know we won't take up the whole time, but I do want to respect everyone's time that are on here from the start. So today's topic, guys, we're going to go over 12 and 13, but we are going to be focused on grades 8 and above. So I'm not going to be going over the youngers just because Julie really focused on that last week. Again, as usual with the group norms, ask any question that you have. Again, if one of the 4 of us does not have the answer, we will go ahead and get that for you as soon as possible. We all have different situations, so when we ask questions, let's just respect the different views and questions, and again, respect time and be engaged. So statewide and district-wide testing, everyone's favorite time. I am not going to spend a lot of time over the alternative assessment because Julie spent a lot of time on that last week. If you were not on it last week and you have questions, we can go ahead and maybe ask them near the end, but I do know that we spent a good 10 minutes on this section. And if you open today's presentation, you'll see that the decision-making tool, there's a link for that as well as some frequently asked questions. Just a couple things to remember. You are only required to do this if you are considering AA for student. And you have to do this every year. You must have all individuals sign it as well. I know I've been asked before if it is a mandatory thing, and I know I just said it, but I'm going to stress it again. If you are going to have a student testing the alternate pathway, then yes, they must fill this out. All right, so we're just going to get into the statewide district-wide testing for the upper grades. And again, with the link, just as last time, if you're in the presentation, there are links for the appendices and the accessibility manual that has much of the details on that I'm going to be going over today. And also, I'm not certain if anyone took a look at this, but again, if you have questions, it goes through the protocol for scribing and transcribing paper-based Ohio State testing. If you have questions on any of that, it is on this page here. Okay, so if we have a child participating in district and statewide testing, and they will be doing this with accommodations. A couple things. District, any test that is district administers to all students in a specified content area or grade level. This means all students are taking it. Could be the MAP and Ames Web, STAR, Terra Nova, any of these that the entire district is taking, this is considered a district-wide test. When we're talking about state testing, we're talking about those end of course exams, ASCD. We have the the KRA for kindergarten, any Ohio diagnostic assessment. So any of these are our statewide tests. When I talk about other tests, what we're talking about really is your ACT, your SAT, any work keys or web exams. So if you have a student that will be taking any of these must be in the other category. One area that can be confusing when we are looking at ELA, when we are into the high school, we are not going to touch reading and writing. We are just marking ELA. You will not be touching the reading or the writing, because what you're going to be doing is putting ELA 1 or ELA 2. So you will not have to touch this reading and writing section. So when we are talking about high school end of course exams, you will put the ELA 1, ELA 2, but not reading or writing. Then when we go into the detailed accommodations, again, we want to make sure that we're detailed with this. We should not be just putting the extended time. What does that look like? The other thing that we need to know is that some tests, if we're looking at ACT or SAT or work keys, they might not allow certain accommodations. Please make sure you are aware of what accommodations are allowed for what test before putting them on there. For those of you that are aware or have heard me talk before about the ACT, anyone giving that this year, what's great is they did make it easier, and pretty much if it's on a student's IEP, they are now accepting it. Before in the past, there was a lot more hoops to go through, and if a student is utilizing it, they are able to use it on the ACT. Are there any questions on this part? And if you ask, well, what are the allowable accommodations? I'm not going to go through that right now just because there are way too many tests. If you have a specific questions with regards to that, reach out and I can help get the answer for that. All right, so we're going to go into section 13 with the exemptions. Although I am talking about 8th grade and above, I am going to mention the 3rd grade reading guarantee because I'm not certain if we went over it, but I did have a question about it this morning, so I want to make sure everyone knows about it. First thing that we're going to look at is, does the child have a significant cognitive disability? If yes, then the child's not required to take that. However, we are only looking at the 3rd grade reading guarantee. It does not apply unless a student is approaching the testing window within the IEP term. So if a student is in 1st grade, we're not looking at this now. We are looking at it when they're in that 3rd grade and they are approaching that testing window. However, of course, there's always a however, right? RIMS based on the kindergarten readiness assessment scores and or progress in the reading curriculum should be present in the student's profile. So even though you're not talking about the 3rd grade reading guarantee until it's in the testing window, you still need all of this data in there. All right, so continuing. So if no, we still need to consider all the data, right, to determine whether or not we are going to exempt a student from taking that 3rd grade reading guarantee. All right, so that's all I'm going to touch upon with 3rd grade reading guarantee. Now I'm going to go back to the upper grades, but does anyone have questions on that?
I don't see anything in the chat, Danielle.
Perfect. All right, so when we are looking at exemptions for graduation, this is going to get real tricky because, as we all know, graduation requirements have changed. So if we are saying the child is excused, we have to be very specific as to what we are excusing them from. So are we excusing them from Algebra 1, Geometry, English 2? We have to put that category. Then we're going to type in the course title and we have to give a justification. I'm going to talk about that justification a little bit more because with the new graduation rules, it does not matter if you are taking the alternate test or you are taking the general test that all students are taking. You must test, receive remediation, and then retest in that subject area, not passed, before you can look at an excusal. So what that means, and I'm going to go back to this, we should not be excusing a student any longer on these graduation tests unless they've already tested and retested. Again, we should not be excusing a student on a graduation test until they have tested twice. This is for all. This is for the alternate and this is for the regular. Are there any questions on that? Wow, everyone's super quiet, or I'm just really good, one or the other. All right, when we are looking at the other assessments, this is where you can put ACT work keys. If the rest of the student population will be taking it, again, this has to be everyone's taking it before we have to put it in this other assessment. If not everyone's taking it, we do not have to be putting it here. But again, we need a justification as to why they're not having to take it. Guys, that was only 10 minutes long. That was it for
Danielle, under other assessments, when I have like all of our juniors take the ACT test as the state mandates, if I have like my MD students, would I be putting that they are exempt? Because I've been under the impression in the past it's just based on cognitive abilities, but we need to start noting that under other assessments.
correct. Yes.
Okay.
This is Karen Ruff. I have a question. It came up in an IEP today. If we have a student who has met their requirement for their end of the year tests, but they're continuing on in school, how do we mark this page? They're not taking the page anymore. EMIS is telling our district that we have to continue to mark that if they had taken the alternate assessment, that they are again taking the alternate, have to mark alternate assessment, or we have to mark that like they are taking it even though they've already met all the requirements and are not taking it. Is that how it should be done, or is there something else? How do we do that?
I do not want to give the wrong information, and sometimes EMIS requires us to do stuff just because otherwise it's going to flag things and leave it open. I mean, I can double check with that, but again, that's going to come down to your system more, which is why I would trust EMIS more, but I don't know, Jen or Julie or Stacy, do you guys know that one?
I agree with you, Danielle. I would want to check with EMIS.
Okay, so EMIS would be the last word, which is what we had discussed. If that's what EMIS needs to make the system work, then that's what we would do as long as everyone knows what's going on. So, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would just go ahead and make sure you're putting that in the PRO1 and explain why that's on there.
Okay.
It is, again, our PRO1, right, that's where we're putting all those details with that. So again, I'll double check to see if I can find out anything else, but usually when it comes down to that, EMIS is asking us to do it because otherwise we're going to get flagged all over the place with things. So if they're telling you to do it, that's probably why.
Okay, that's good enough for us. Thanks.
No problem. Anyone else, any questions? Well, if not, you guys can go ahead if you don't mind giving feedback on this section in case there's anything that we missed or you wish we would have discussed during this time period. So we know for the next time we do these. And if people have more questions on graduation, I know that it was sent out, but on May 3rd, myself, Dave Kish and Lonnie Rivera will be presenting on the most updated graduation. And we're waiting to May because supposed to have the alternate assessment scores by then. It was put up to the board and we're just waiting for the approval. So in May, we are going to be doing that presentation. So if you have questions on graduation, obviously you can email me, but we will be presenting on May 3rd. If you didn't get that SMOR or get that link, let me know so we can get that to you as well. And I believe next week is our last one. And that is actually going to be going over the PRO1 and invites, I believe, right?
Yeah, I just put that in the chat.
Perfect.
I put the sign-in link because someone else asked for it, but the next session is our last session next Tuesday, the 29th, section 14, invitation and PRO1.
We should add in there that we're going to do section 15 too, which is signatures for agreement and things like, because we just had a conversation about that today.
Oh,
We'll
okay.
do sections 14, 15 invites and PRO1s next week.
Good call, Julie.
I have a little question, Danielle.
Absolutely.
Exemptions. There's not any specifics we have to put in there, just document that they were tested, retested, and they received remediation. Do we need to go into detail about like the frequency, duration of like, you know, list sessions or anything for remediation?
No, just that the student tested, received remediation, retested, and the IEP team determines exemption from the test.
Easiest part of the whole IEP, huh? All right,
Yes,
thank you.
no problem. And just remember, just because we're exempting kids from the test, we still have to earn the seals. And we still have to take all those tests, even though only 2 of them count for the competency. I've been asked that a lot. We still have that whole list of them. I don't think I have it up here. We're still doing the algebra and the geometry and the English 2, American history, government, and biology.
And then they only have to take them. They don't have to take them each year, right? So
Correct.
ninth grade
And
year,
the
they don't
only
take-
ones that you have to retest on are the algebra and the English 2. Those are the only ones that require that retest because those are for competency.
Got it.
The
Thanks.
American history and the government and the biology, because you can earn seals with those, they're still required to take, but you do not have to take them twice. Does that spark any questions for anyone else? Okay. Well, then we'll let you guys go and enjoy your afternoon. And again, feel free to reach out with any questions. You guys have been doing awesome with asking any of us questions, and we kind of all bounce the ideas back and forth till we get you guys the correct answer.
Danielle,
Hi, Lori.
Asking us to give her information about state results.
I think that was
Was it-
Lori.
I wasn't sure if she had a question. Or maybe
Or
she
maybe
was just
said
saying
Thank you.
hi or bye.
Oh,
I-
maybe.
Because I-
We just heard the second part.
All
Yeah.
information is provided on our website. You're getting paid, you do it.
All right.
All right, I guess we can end.
I'm guessing so. I don't hear any other questions. All right. We'll stop the recording and end the session.